So, your dad had this wonderful career in pro sports. When did you know, like at what age did you know I'm going to be a play-by-play broadcaster?
Well, probably when I got Frank to about 11, 12, 13 years old. Him being with the Cardinals from 65 to 71. I've been in press boxes by the grace of God my whole life. And then when he went to Green Bay, same thing, worked in the Lambeau Field press box. And had a chance to kind of see behind the curtain of what the business was like, see what guys like you do, and writers that would come into Green Bay or St. Louis broadcast. I mean, I remember so clearly in my mind sitting after we go to church on Sunday. Sunday was my day to come down to Busch Stadium and watch the Cardinals play in the summer, and sitting and having breakfast with my dad at the old Busch Stadium in the press box. And I remember Lindsey Nelson and Bob Prince, voice of the Pirates, and Vin Scully of the Dodgers, like and then Bob Bragg and Jack Buck and Harry Carey walking through, getting there in the morning before a 1 o'clock first pitch, and seeing them and talking to my dad and kind of trying to figure out who these people were. And as I got older, I realized these are the giants of our business. So I had a chance to see behind the curtain, and I think that all kind of fed to when I was about 12, 13 years old, wanting to get in the business.
What broadcaster do you think had the biggest impact on your life? I'm thinking growing up with Jack Buck, Harry Carey, but then you also had Ray Scott in Green Bay when you got a little older. Who would it be?
Yes, there's so many. The first voice that I really remember Frank listening to was the Super Bowl I narration of NFL films between the Chiefs and Packers with John Facenda. And I remember more the voice of him narrating than the actual footage of the game. And I think that's kind of the first voice that got stuck in my head. And then shortly after that, in St. Louis, I was about 8 or 9, I remember hearing Jack Buck and Harry Carey on radio, and then Dan Kelly doing the blues on KMOX. And those, I think, are the first voices that really resonated. When I got to Green Bay, that I was kind of in that mode, I was about 10 years old. Then I began to remember the Ray Scotts and the Pat Summeralls and the Don Crickeys and the Jim Simpsons, people like that. But really it began with Facenda, and then the voices here in St. Louis, Kelly, Buck, and Harry Carey.
So everybody sees your success now and your meteoric rise. But did you ever run across somebody in the business who said you're not going to make it?
When I was in college at the University of Kansas, I majored in broadcast journalism. So I was, 18, 19 years old. And I took a news writing course because writing is as important in broadcasting as the actual delivery on the air. And my news skills, my reporting news skills, were probably not very good. And the guy that headed this class said, you might want to think of a different profession, because I wasn't really into covering city council meetings in Lawrence, Kansas when I was in school, or covering whatever I was assigned to do for my projects. But what I did learn from that class, which has been imperative in my whole career, as it is in yours and everybody's in the business, is that you are a good reporter first and foremost. Who, what, why, where, and how. Those are the things that continually I think about when I'm doing a game, as you do when you're doing your sportscast. So I would tell you that that was probably the only time anybody ever said, you may want to think of a different profession, because they didn't see a lot of skill as a news reporter, which I'm glad, because I'm glad I chose sports over news.
So you mentioned Kansas. How in the world did Norm Stewart allow a Kansas grad to do Mizzou play-by-play, and with his personality, did he rib you a lot? And
I wrote the foreword to his book after, so I was a Jayhawk, clearly, and I was working for a station in Kansas City that just acquired the rights to broadcast Missouri football and basketball in that region, aside from KMOX in St. Louis. And then I had to go down on a hot summer July afternoon and have lunch with Norm Stewart, Joe Castiglione, who was the assistant AD, who's now at Oklahoma, Jack Lingle, who was the AD, who's got a history unto his own, and Woody Woodenhofer, who was the football coach. I had to sell them that a Jayhawk could do the Missouri Tigers, and it worked out well, actually. Had a great lunch. Fast forward a couple months to the beginning of practice in Columbia for Norm Stewart's basketball Tigers. And I was given permission to sit up in the stands for the first practice, but Norm Stewart had not gotten word that I was going to be there. And he had forgotten that I was going to be there. And a couple of the kids on the court with him got the word, who is that guy sitting up there, and get him out of my, field house. So they came up, and I said, Bob Brendel gave me the opportunity to watch the practice. Norm got word on the court, raced up the stairs, sat next to me for the first half hour of practice and said, hey, Virginia and I are going to get some dinner after practice. Why don't you stay and join us and sleep over at the house and then go back tomorrow, which I did and had a wonderful time. And that began a 3-year relationship with one of the people that I value the most in my career. Norm Stewart was so good to me, and we correspond to this day. We were texting just the other day on the Coaches versus Cancer. And so I've got a very special place in my heart for Mizzou athletics and certainly for Coach Stewart.
Sometimes when somebody's at a job for a long time, their energy level wanes. You seem to have the exact same energy level in your 60s that you did when you were 20.
Well, I love the business. I don't like the travel and the other stuff, but I love doing games. I'm excited about this championship game today. We're doing the A-10 championship next week in Washington, then the NCAA tournament. Just finished doing the Super Bowl in New Orleans. I love the business, and I love doing games, and that's my earliest memory. Going to games, going to Blues games at the old arena, and watching the Cardinals, as we talked about earlier, back when I was 6, 7, 8, 9 years old, and then going to Lambeau Field. So I've been around sports and games and press boxes and fields, diamonds, my whole life, and I am energized by that, and I love the business of broadcasting. I've listened to voices, I've studied the business. I love the history of broadcasting and how guys like you and like myself and hundreds of others have worked their way up and what their journey was. So those keep me going. But I would tell you, with 6 grandchildren now, 4 kids, and my wife of 38 years, it continues to be hard to leave for every event. But once I'm there at an arena, at a stadium, I'm energized and love my job.
So there are a couple of wild stats out there about you. You're 3rd all-time in network broadcast of the 4 major sports, and you're top 10 all-time in terms of NFL broadcasts with over 500. When you hear those numbers, what do you think?
Pretty stunned, quite frankly. No one brought that to my attention until a couple years ago during a CBS NFL broadcast. They put that up there that I had hit number 500. And then someone after that said, well, not only that, but you've got combined college basketball, NBA, and NFL. You've got all these games, which did not take into account all the network radio with Westwood One and CBS Radio. Pretty stunned by it. If you would have told me at 10 or 15 years old, this is what your path would be and this is the kind of career you'd have, I would be in awe and say, no way. There's no way that's going to happen. When I got out, I really did not care where I went. When I got out of college, I said, if I could get a great small college play-by-play job or work in a market where I'm doing a ton of high school radio play, I'd be so happy. Now, I idolize the greats, the Bucks and the Dan Kellys and all those people like that. But at the end of the day, I really just felt like I take nothing for granted. I want to let it happen organically. And by the grace of God, I've been blessed in so many ways. But one is to have a career that's been able to cover multiple decades and do multiple sports and as you point out, a lot of games. But never thought that would happen and feel such incredible gratitude that I've been in that seat to do those games and be in that position.
Can you describe the high when you know you've nailed the broadcast, or if it's an 88 game in the waning seconds and you see a last-second shot? What is that high like?
Well, I feel like, hopefully I hit it. But I would tell you this: that I don't think of, as most broadcasters would say, I've not done a perfect broadcast. I could pick hundreds of things after every game that I wish I would have done differently, said differently, organized differently, led to my analysts differently. But that's the challenge of the business, right? The challenge of the business is to nail those calls if you can with preparation and clarity of thought. And so I carry those with me. But a lot of times it's more like, it's relief. Okay, I think I got it. I'll go back and watch. All right, good. I talked about the timeouts remaining, who was on the floor, what the situation was. I framed it well, and then hopefully hit that call, that crescendo of my call, and then let the crowd, which is such a great orchestra, fill in, and make that moment even special with the great shots by our truck and our crew. But it's more relief than it is like, yeah. I don't think I've ever said, yeah. I think I've gone, whew, I think I dodged another bullet and I can go broadcast another game. It's relief than anything else.
Let me give you a couple of your great calls, and just give me 10 seconds on it.
Okay.
The Kobe Bryant dunk versus the Timberwolves.
Well, that was in a playoff game, and I think '04 in Minneapolis. Timberwolves were emerging, but Bryant was still there in LA with the Lakers. And, you know, everyone says, who's your favorite player? And I would have to say, you know, Brady on the NFL side, but Michael Jordan, and then a close second, maybe a 1A, was Kobe Bryant with LeBron in there someplace. But the theatrics and the acrobatic nature of Kobe Bryant were so compelling, and just you're just in awe of what these guys can do. And that was one of those moments, like you're thinking, how in the world did he just pull that off? He's like a magician, and that's what is so fun to watch.
The Furman upset over Virginia.
Well, I'm working during the tournament. It's a 4-13. It's a team that the year before had been in the Final Four, and a Final Four guard in the final seconds has the ball, right? He's supposed to have this depth of precision and thought and presence and knowing what to do in that kind of situation. And he throws up this unconscionable pass because he was being pressured. And then the Furman kids, a small school in South Carolina, they get the pass, they hit the shot, and they go on to win the game. Those are the kind of moments you love in the NCAA tournament. It's the small school against, here's a Final Four national championship team, and they're able to pull off this gigantic upset. And then the crowd, again, I talked about the crowd again, right? The crowd is such a great orchestra to fill in, and that was one of those great moments in the tournament.
The man running on the field with the pink bra.
Well, I've had a couple of drunks hit the field, and the games were out of hand, by the way. It was not an important part of the game. But when they're so theatrical on the field and they're doing all this stuff and guys are looking at them, you just say, you know, why are you out there? What are you doing? And what must the players be thinking? And so having a little fun with it is always great. But as long as they understand, the audience and the leagues I'm broadcasting for understand the situation, I'm okay with it. But I don't make it a habit for sure.